So I'd just like to welcome everybody here to today's webinar for World Quality Week. And this year's theme for World Quality Week is realising your competitive potential. And I think that that's really key in this day and age and in 2023, that as quality professionals and professionals in the built environment, that we realise that the efficiencies and the benefit of, I suppose, building good quality projects and safe projects can really help um, achieve good potential in terms of profit margin to businesses and also personally. So it can really help you develop your career having this bit of extra knowledge and experience with regards to building safety. And we hope you enjoy this webinar here today and ask lots of questions going forward. So just some general Q&A on this, some general housekeeping. The webinar is recorded and the recording will be available and we can send that on to you at the end. We'd love you to ask questions and the question and answer box is available for you there. Please go ahead and ask any questions that you'd like in that question and answer box. And what we'll do is we will direct those questions to the relative people at the end and we'll be here to answer those questions. And yeah, look, it's informal, so if you have a burning question in your mind and you think, yeah, you'd really need to know what the answer is, and there's no such thing as a silly question, so please don't be afraid to ask questions, and we're definitely here to support you to learn a bit going forwards. With all of that, I will start by introducing myself. So we have three speakers today. So I'm Lorna Hagan. I'm a civil engineer and I have 18 years experience for the main contractor, very much in a site-based practical role. I'm also the Director of Constructuition, which provides training and consultancy services with regards to quality in the construction industry. And I'm one of the BSF assessors. I've been an assessor for around 18 months now, and yeah, have been involved with helping a couple of companies move through the process, so very much aware of it. I'll pass it over to my colleague Louise and then also Adrian, and they can quickly introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, lovely to meet you. My name's Louise Wren. I'm the Framework and Operations Delivery Manager and I work for Building a Safer Future. So I'm one of the main contacts that organisations, speak to when they're engaging with BSF as an organisation. So I'm going to be giving a presentation today, but if you have any specific questions that relate directly to your own organisation, please don't hesitate to get in touch because I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
And good afternoon. My name is Adrian Shilliday and I'm a Technical Director for Galliford Try, and I'm responsible for our business management systems for design management and BIM, and also for information management, which includes our document management systems and our quality tools. And my key sort of role over the last probably couple of years now has been looking at the Building Safety Act and our Charter Championship, which we'll talk about later today.
Perfect. Thanks very much, guys. Okay, so I'll just start off. So what has quality got to do with building safety? And I'm very much here to explain that and give you a bit of a background to building safety and help you understand that. So the Building Safety Act became law in April of 2022, and it has jurisdiction in England, but also other parts of the UK. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So it is specifically UK based, but I think it has wider repercussions on the larger industry going forwards. And really what it's set out to do is to provide this step change in construction and make us build better, safer buildings for the future. One problem that we're finding with building safety, it's probably because of its name, it's not maybe helping it a lot, but building safety and occupational health and safety often get confused. So I just wanted to draw your attention to which is which and how to tell the difference between them. So the Building Safety Act, so Part 4, Clause 62 to be exact, tells you what a building safety risk is, and it's the risk to the safety of people in or about a building arising from any of the following occurring. So fire, structural failure, or any other prescribed manner. And it's very much about, yeah, that compliance with Building Safety Act, compliance with the building regulations, compliance with standards such as, British standards, European standards, design codes, those sorts of things, and quality assurance and control. And that's very much where the Building Safety Act is specific about. Occupational health and safety, and we find often the two of these get very confused. So you would have the ISO 45001 that deals with that occupational health and safety. And that's the combination or the likelihood of occurrence of work-related hazardous events or exposure to the severity of injury and ill health. It's all about keeping the people safe while they're constructing the project, as opposed to making sure that the building and the building structure is safe. So I always like to say the building safety is, remember the word building, because that's what it's about, whereas occupational health and safety is about keeping the people safe whilst they're constructing the project. And that's CDM 2015 regulations, workplace health and safety and behavioural safety, all sits under that occupational health and safety requirements. And that's the big key difference between the two. And when you see that, you can see why quality and building safety are very closely interlinked. And really, a positive step would be to have more robust quality procedures in place in order to satisfy the requirements of building safety. So just a few things, when does it apply, and to give you that background to the Building Safety Act. So the new duty holder regulations concern compliance with building regulations. So if a job goes under building regulations, it complies with it. So therefore all works subject to building regulations. Then new regulatory schemes for higher risk buildings. So as a prelude to this, we had the Grenfell Tower disaster where over 70 people lost their lives. And this is what the Building Safety Act was really put in place to do. It was to stop that from ever happening again. And that's why there's these extra and additional controls in these high risk buildings going forwards. So you can see here, a HRB, this high risk buildings, are 7 or more stories or that are 18 metres or higher and have 2 residential units, have extra requirements than normal. So duty holders, they have definitive responsibilities, will be assigned, including the client, principal designer, principal contractor or contractor. And effectively, it is anyone who might create a risk during their contribution to a construction or refurbishment. It's a little confusing. Those duty holders are very like CDM 2015, but not exactly the same as CDM 2015. So without going into it here, you need to read the Building Safety Act duty holder legislation on it to find out the specific duties. So with that, you also see here under the Building Safety Act, there's a new regulator, so there's a new law and an enforcement body behind that. So this is a branch of the Health and Safety Executive, and they're effective now, and they oversee safety and standards in relation to all buildings. Especially these high-risk buildings, they will become the Building Control Authority, and they'll retain responsibilities during the occupational stage. So, for example, all of those high-rise residential buildings need to be registered with the Building Safety Regulator. And the idea of them as well is they're there to drive up competence of the building control professionals and genuinely improve that wider building control regime within the built environment. And there's a lot of people are saying that there won't be like this two-tier system. So if the building control requirements will move closer and closer to the requirements that as set out by the building safety regulator. So building control is going to definitely improve and move up a gear. So there's a 3 gateway approach for these high-risk buildings. A planning, this is actually nothing specifically new, just a bit more robust. So utilise existing planning permission processes, but that planning applications need to demonstrate that fire safety requirements have been considered. Once you get through it, you get to Gateway 2, which is design stage, and construction cannot be built until the building safety regulator is satisfied that it meets the functional requirements of the building. And that's new. What it will also mean is there will also be a time required to ensure that that design stage 2 gets through the building safety regulator, and there's often requirements for the likes of specialist supply chain to be on board early so that they can input into the design. So it will create a new way of working within the construction industry. Then Gateway 3, so construction happens between Gateway 2 and Gateway 3, and then Gateway 3 at the end is when the building work is completed. So they apply for a completion certificate, and the BSR checks that all the requirements have been met, the golden thread of digital information has been received and it's adequate. And if they're happy, they will give you that completion certificate. And the building cannot be occupied until you receive the completion certificate. So yet again, it's a process, and time should be allowed for it, and probably time built in also for resubmittal if necessary until everybody gets used to the regime and used to the requirements of the building safety regulator, because it is still new to everybody out there. So what is the golden thread? And there's lots of chat about what the golden thread is and what it isn't. And, this is the definition. It's information about a building that allows someone to understand a building and keep it safe. This information, there's also the information management to ensure that the information is accurate, easily understandable, can be accessed by those who need it, and up to date. So it's 2 parts. It's the information and how you manage that information. So I suppose some other myths around it. That golden thread of information in basic terms will act as a digital, always accessible audit trail throughout the life of a building. A common data environment should be used. There's lots of ones out there, but it should be common, and there should only be one where at all possible. What it's not is it's not a piece of software that you can buy out of a box. But there is lots of software out there that will support this information capture, but it definitely has to sit within a framework and a system and an overall logic of how you put that information together. And yeah, in order for you to get through Gateway 3 and get completion and the building occupied and handed over, and then that information being available and accessible for the building occupants to use and keep them safe in the future. So some other key themes within the Building Safety Act is about competence, and if you look at the inquiry into Grenfell, there was a lack of competence within lots of different positions within the Grenfell Tower inquiry, from the top right down to the bottom. And this is just one extract of what the principal contractor is supposed to do. So there is whole paths written around this to provide support and guidance to the industry. And it's free to download on BSI's website. You just have to give them an email. But I would say definitely have a look at it, because this is part of the findings from DMG Judith Hackett's report, that we need more competence and more accountability within the construction industry. Principal contractor here, so they should be able to interrogate design and construction activity, challenge the quality of work and bad practices, and identify major hazards and minimize risk to safety during building use. So I've picked out the key items that I think are important with regards to quality there, but there's so many within that document, and I think it's a really good source of information. And if you're building out a quality management system, you should definitely get a copy of that and download it going forwards. So how does building safety and ISO 9001 or 99001 work together? So there's 2 standards here. So ISO 9001 is for the standard for quality management, and that's pan industry. So lots of industries have 9001, aviation, hotels, banking, they're all running to 9001. A new standard that's been released is BS 99001, and what it sets out to do is to provide a more prescriptive and a more proportional approach to the construction industry. You read 9001 and it takes some interpretation for you to be able to understand how that would work within the construction industry. 9001 makes it a bit more prescriptive, a bit more, the language is like the construction industry, and it's easier to apply in that sense and provides you a bit of extra detail. So what I wanted to do was just show you one example of how these two will sort of work together. So you can see here 9001, the clause in it, 8.5.1 is the control of product and service provision. So it tells you you should monitor and measure activities at appropriate stages to verify criteria of processes or outputs. It's quite difficult to understand how that would work in the construction environment, whereas BS 99001 makes it much clearer. So it talks about workmanships, changes to the agreed timing and sequence of product and service provision, accountabilities through the supply chain, controlling and monitoring critical processes. You can see the difference between the two. And most companies have a ISO 9001 certificate, and there is you can get 99001 certified, but I would say if you at least apply the rules or the extra information in 99001, it will definitely provide you with much more clearer guidance on how to operate a really robust management system within your construction business. So what does this mean in terms of how building safety works directly through to 99001? So there's key themes within the building safety legislation and key areas where it's saying you need to look at this, you need to do better on this, and you need to ensure that your quality management system is robust and set up to suit this environment. So if we look at suited to the project environment, so it should be specific, it shouldn't be generic, it should have taken consideration of the risks and the hazards within that project. So we have section 4 of context of BS 99001 very much prescribes those requirements. So if you do that, you should be close to the building safety requirements. We look at competency. So there's a whole section 5, which is about leadership, and section 7, which is about support. So it's about having leaders in place and enough support and enough resources on the project to manage the project. Product safety and procurement. So section 8.4, externally provided process, service and products. How should you verify those things? What audits are required? What are the requirements and products that you're bringing in? And right through to ensuring it potentially has the right fire rating, it has the correct performance criteria. All of that set out in that section of BS 99001. Accountability, again, who's accountable, who's responsible, duty holder requirements, section 5. Golden thread of information, it talks about documented information, always up to date, readily available, easy to access. Very similar words to the golden thread of digital information. Verification of build quality, product service provision, and how to deal with non-conformances is also in there. We have risk reduction and change management is a huge part of the Building Safety Act. And with the high risk buildings, that change management may potentially go right through back to the building safety regulator. So how are you describing that process and how are you managing that process? That should all be within your management system as well. Operational safety, so yeah, the likes of operational planning and design. So how have you planned that building is going to be designed, constructed safely in the first place? And that data review and lessons learned. So very much along the lines of golden thread and the learning process going forward. So section 9 and 10 of 9001 is all about that continuous improvement. So very much my call to action to you guys would be to, review your management system for compliance with the Act. And I would say use BS 99001 as a real guide to how those two are going to comply together. It won't do everything. It's not going to stop you needing to read the Building Safety Act and dissecting it for those individual projects and your business and how it works. But definitely as a framework and a guide, it will help going forward. And we'll hear from Louise as well. As I say, I'm a Building a Safer Future assessor, and she'll explain Similarly, the process of how the Building a Safer Future Charter champion process works with regards to assessing under the same framework. And it's no secret that as an assessor, one of the things that we look at is your quality management system. And we're looking for all of these, compliance with all of these items as part of that assessment process. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, and I will stop sharing and pass over to Louise.
Thank you, Lorna. Lovely. Let's just share my screen now. Okay, hopefully you should now all be able to see a screen with a blue background on there. Perfect. Well, I want to start just by saying thank you so much to Lorna for the invitation to present at this webinar. We're very grateful, obviously, for the opportunity to speak and to tell you all about building a safer future and the ways that organisations can engage with us. So I'd like to start just by providing a little bit of context to frame the information that I'm going to tell you throughout this presentation. So building safety. So historically in the built environment, building safety kind of knowledge, principles and practices have resided within certain departments in organisations. So of course, outside experts in building safety exist, of course they do, but that knowledge within organisations has historically remained concentrated in quality and technical teams. And this is quite a siloed approach. And this siloed approach isn't very useful, it's quite outdated, and unfortunately, it's not as effective as it could be. It is our understanding, the understanding of the industry and the understanding of the government that a high standard of building safety culture must be maintained at all stages of a building's life cycle. So there should be, attention and care put towards building safety right from the very start at the procurement, on through to the design stages and the planning stages, obviously through to construction as well, to handover, and then finally, of course, to occupation and the maintenance phases of the building as well. So this means that building safety is, critically important, and that building safety knowledge is important for everyone to know about, and everyone who is involved with buildings and the built environment at any stage of a building's life cycle has a duty and a moral obligation to support building safety in any role that they play. So what you can see on your screen now is what we call the Building a Safer Future Charter. So this charter was generated in the direct aftermath of the Grenfell Tower disaster. And what it is, it's a set of guiding principles that were formed actually by the industry, and it was named the Building a Safer Future Charter. Now, these principles were put together by a group of organisations who we call the early adopters, and they actually consist of 4 housing associations, 4 Tier 1 contractors and 4 local authorities as well. So who I work for, Building a Safer Future Limited, we came about because we took on responsibility for the Building a Safer Future Charter, and we took on responsibility to maintain and develop it further. So Building a Safer Future Limited, we are an independent organisation. We're also a not-for-profit organisation as well. And we were appointed in an open competition to take on responsibility for the Charter and to develop it beyond the 5 commitments that you can see on the screen now, to actually develop a mechanism for sustained culture change in the built environment industry. So you can see these 5 commitments on the screen. You'll notice obviously that they put building users and building residents at their heart, and it's got a really strong emphasis on communication as well, which feeds into the things that Lorna was saying earlier about the golden thread and the importance of maintaining that information throughout a building's life cycle. It's these 5 commitments that you can see on the screen now, alongside the recommendations of the Hackett Review that came out following the Grenfell disaster, and also, of course, the Building Safety Act that actually serve as the foundation of our assessment framework, which I'm going to move on to. And our mission is to support organisations to increase and improve their leadership and commitment and organisational culture in relation to building safety, and also to help them foster a culture of continuous improvement in relation to building safety as well. Okay, so the company I work for, Building a Safer Future Limited, and there are three main ways that organisations can actually engage with us. So you can see them on your screen now. So on the left-hand side, we've got signatory. So this is as a registered signatory of the Building a Safer Future Charter, and this is our entry level of engagement. We have about 400, or coming up for 400 different organisations who are actually registered signatories of the Building a Safer Future Charter, and that number is growing all the time. And I do know that some of you in this audience today work for companies that are registered signatories with us. So this was launched in July 2020, and organisations who sign up as registered signatories actually make a public commitment to those 5 key commitments of the Building a Safer Future Charter. So they promise to kind of embed those commitments into all their business strategies and their business activities. Now, the second way that organisations can engage with us is as a corporate supporter. So if you go onto our website, you'll see that there are certain organisations that come under the category of corporate supporter. You'll see under there that there's a number of procurement and construction frameworks that have corporate supporter status, and those frameworks are actually ones that mandate a certain level of engagement with Building a Safer Future as a requisite for framework participation. You may have noticed that more and more frameworks are actually, encouraging and in some cases requiring engagement with Building a Safer Future in order to actually get onto the frameworks. Those conversations are ongoing, and you'll see more and more frameworks have those expectations as well. Now, the third way that organisations can engage with us, so that's the one on the right, is as a Building a Safer Future champion. Now, this is an assessment process that was launched in 2021 with a group of those early adopter organisations. And what it is, it's a detailed 2-stage assessment of an organisation's systems, policies, procedures and processes in relation to building safety. We have around 70 organisations that are either currently undertaking or about to start the Building a Safer Future Champion process. And it actually does cover and cater for organisations of all sizes, from SMEs all the way up to the big multi-million pound organisations. So on the next slide, I'm just going to give you some top level detail about the Champions process. So the Champions process uses a framework that has a tried and tested approach, and it's actually modelled from other high hazard sectors. So I'm talking about sectors such as oil and gas, rail, maritime, chemicals, nuclear, aviation. So all of these high hazard sectors, and we take the learnings that they have and the journeys that they've been on to improve their own safety cultures, and we've developed and applied it to the built environment industry using 6 building safety critical themes that you can see in the diagram in front of you that underpin sound safety governance. So you can see them that go around the edge there: supply chain, construction product safety, competence, stakeholder engagement, managing change, and audit and review. So the whole assessment covers those 6 themes. So as I said, the assessment is split into 2 parts, or 2 assessment modules. Stage 1 comprises 2 psychometric surveys, one called Leadership Commitment and the other one called Organisational Culture. And those are completed by a really broad range of people within an organisation, so we get a really wide breadth of insight. So we have survey respondents across teams, functions, seniority levels, geographical locations. So we get a really nice kind of level of data that comes back. Stage 2 is an assessment against those 6 topics that you can see around the edge of this circular diagram here. And those topics actually feed in to the primary focus of the assessment, which is an organisation's leadership and culture in relation to building safety. So we have a team of expert assessors, and your assessor will be assigned to your organisation right from the very start. And they're the ones that actually verify the data that comes through and actually produce the report. So there's one report for leadership and culture, which is the first stage of the actual assessment. And then there's another separate report for corroborating elements, which is the second stage. So the reports that you received are really highly detailed, they're comprehensive, they're robust, they set a really high bar, and they include things like the strengths in building safety that have been recognised in your organisation, examples of innovation that you've got in relation to building safety and examples of best practice. But they also identify your areas for development and your opportunities for improvement as well. So these are supported, these findings, with hard evidence, insight and analysis from your assessors, and they actually give you those tools that you need to identify, where your focus is best, given in relation to building safety. The outputs, which are the reports, both for leadership and culture and also for corroborating elements, are calibrated by a peer review process. And we also have an independent calibration panel as well internally here at Building a Safer Future. The outcome of the assessment is also confirmed by an independent confirmation panel as well. So this process is all about continuous improvement. That's what we really like to see. That's what we're really trying to foster, a culture of continuous improvement. In that spirit, we require organisations to create a continuous improvement plan. And this is reviewed throughout the time that the organisation actually holds Building a Safer Future champion status. The other important thing to say is that obviously things are really fast moving in the industry at the moment. We've had a set of secondary legislation in relation to the Building Safety Act. We're expecting more to come. And the assessment framework that we have is dynamic, and it is actually updated constantly to reflect new regulations and new requirements on the industry. Okay, so to draw a line under that, just in a nutshell, the aim of the Building a Safer Future Champions process is to reduce an organisation's risk profile in relation to building safety. It's about supporting the maturation of your building safety culture, and it's also distinguished the leaders in building safety, because the organisations that come on and actually step forward and do this process are really seen as leaders in the industry. So the framework expectations actually support a reduction in risk profile beyond regulatory compliance. They provide an oversight of sound safety governance to an organisation's board of directors, and they also provide assurance as well to investors, to clients, residents, and of course to the public as well, that an organisation is really serious and really committed to reducing risk in building safety, and also in doing the right thing in building safety as well. So we are really heavily endorsed, and that support is really ongoing from government, including the Industry Safety Steering Group, the Building Safety Regulator, and the Health and Safety Executive. They all recognise, support and endorse this process. So we've only got a couple more slides to go. So over the next slide, I'm going to actually give you a little bit of time, a couple of minutes, to get your phones out, because there is going to be a QR code coming up for you to scan. That's your advance warning there. Okay, so as I said before, the overall purpose and intention of the champion assessment is to reduce your risk profile in relation to building safety. As I said, we do provide two reports, one for the leadership and culture, and the other for the corroborating elements as well. And these are highly detailed narrative and data heavy reports. The reports detail the company's strengths, their areas of innovation and best practice, and also their opportunities for improvement in relation to building safety. We do give you that hard data that comes out as well. We give you analysis and insight and narratives from our expert assessors, and all this really helps and enables organisations to make interventions in relation to different communications or policies or procedures in relation to building safety that need improvement in a timely manner. As I said, organisations that embark on this process are really seen as leaders in the sectors. It helps you understand where you are now in relation to building safety, but it also demonstrates to the public, and this is really important, that the improvements that the industry has promised in the wake of the Grenfell Tower disaster, that they are actually happening, and that we as an industry are committed to making improvements. Ultimately, this is about companies getting external validation. So it's not about companies just thinking, oh, well, we know we're doing well. It's about getting that external eye and that external validation from an expert. And that is really important when it comes to moving forward as a sector. Now, as I said earlier, we are heavily engaged with frameworks. So frameworks such as SCAPE, Crown Commercial Services, and also Homes England as well. So some really well-known major UK frameworks. All of these frameworks have different levels of engagement with us stipulated as a prerequisite for actually engaging in their framework and for participating in their framework. We're in discussions with the insurance community as well regarding the reduction in building safety risk profile that actually comes and is demonstrated as part of participation in this process. And this may lead to future reductions in premiums and fees for organisations that take part. So this can really significantly contribute to an organisation's building safety plans. It has actually played a key role in credit rating reviews that some of our organisations have actually gone through since starting this process. And those are with major agencies such as Standards & Poor's. Through our comprehensive approach to building safety, leadership and culture, we do make that journey, that building safety improvement journey that you're going on, simpler, more impactful and more effective than if you actually embark on that journey alone. So just to summarise again, the idea of this and the aim of this is to reduce your organisation's risk profile in relation to building safety. It enables you to get ahead of regulation as well and to make sure you're prepared. It distinguishes yourselves as leaders in the industry in relation to building safety culture. And we would encourage you on your building safety journey to engage with us because we are your natural and supportive partner on building safety culture. So I promised there'd be a QR code, and here it is. If you want to get your phones out and give it a little scan, you'll see that it takes you directly to the Building a Safer Future website, and that's actually the screen where you would actually sign up with us, either as a registered signatory or as a champion, whichever you prefer. If you actually press on the top left hand of the screen, there's a return to website, and that will take you back to our main homepage. And if you scroll down on there a little bit, beyond the text about the different ways you can engage with us, beyond the latest news section, there's a section called free informational webinars. So we actually provide regular, usually about an hour-long webinars that give you much more detailed information than what I can give you today about the champion process. So that's available for you. Now we've been so lucky and so grateful to have some really fantastic feedback from organisations that go through this process. And we do know that this is an enormously valuable process. I mean, we've been told this, repeated times from our organisations that are coming through. Building safety should run through the heart of an organisation. And this process really does shine a light on your building safety culture and help bring together, different parts of your organisation to unify and align and bring focus onto building safety, and also to the impact that building safety culture can have. So if you aren't already a registered signatory, or if your organisation isn't going through the champion process at the moment, please don't hesitate to get in touch directly. If you are a registered signatory already, would love to open the conversation about possibly taking your engagement further and actually, embarking on the Building a Safer Future champion process. We're really striving to build a community of like-minded organisations and also develop a unified approach in the industry to building safety. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Next, I'm going to hand you over to Adrian Shilliday. He's from Galliford Try, and he's actually from one of those organisations that have actually, engaged in the champion process with us. So you'll hear a little bit from the horse's mouth of their experiences. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise and Lorna. Hopefully my slides appear on the screen okay. Yep, cool. So as Louise said, we've been through our Charter Championship status, and I think for everyone, like every other contractor, the Grenfell Tower disaster was something that we wanted to make sure never happens again, and that was why, as a business who operates across the whole of the UK, we wanted to make sure that we looked at our procedures and our systems to make sure that we could demonstrate that we've got the right sort of processes and culture within our own business. So that was, again, why we signed up to the Charter. And as Lorna has mentioned earlier, we're now starting to see how this applies to every project, not just high-rise and residential. And that's, again, why we've looked at our systems in a lot more detail. So we began the journey 2021. So it's been a long time because the amount of work, as Louise has highlighted, around the leadership and cultural surveys, with a couple of hundred staff go through that, really interesting results, which we'll talk about shortly. And like every other tier one and other contractors, we had existing quality programs, ours right first time, with an existing health and safety program called Challenging Beliefs and Affecting Behaviours. And I think, as Lorna's already highlighted, this terminology of building safety was really interesting, and how staff reacted to it, what was their understanding. So we've developed some sort of new strapline almost. I can actually see some of our team on the call today, that we've got building safety, capital TY, looking at regulations and standards and quality and compliance around our quality wheel, which again, I'll talk about a little bit later. And how does that sit against, how do we build safely on site, which brings in your health and safety CDM regulations around our challenge and beliefs program. So that's been a really useful way of us being able to differentiate between the two sort of programs, but also really simple in showing how they do very much intertwine. And we've now used this across quite a lot of our training programs. As Lorna mentioned, we go through a detailed process, and as Louise highlighted just now, on how our business management systems satisfy each of the key criteria within our business management. So we've got our part of it on our screen, lots of process maps, etc. And we had to go through and demonstrate with Robert, our assessor, how we were able to achieve each of those things around audit and supply chain and quality, etc. So it was a long process. We had to take it in almost exactly the same way as you would go through 9001 certification. There was a lot of regular engagement, and we did treat it in that way, clause by clause. I've been through 19650 with the BSI. We went exactly the same process. How do we demonstrate compliance? We brought all of our evidence together in lots and lots of folders. You don't want to know how many documents is sat in behind that. Looking at our process maps, our guidance, our forms, our quality processes, and actually to demonstrate evidence of those being used on live projects. And as Louise also highlights that continuous improvement, we did identify areas where we didn't just quite meet it, but in many cases that was where there wasn't an industry solution in place. And Lorna and Louise have said there is still this ongoing development, and we will continue to monitor and track that as we go along. So it was a challenge. Many will have seen their 9001 and the detail. However, there is definitely a step up in looking into the more detail than probably industry has been used to. You really do need to have robust culture within your business management systems and training and compliance and audits. And the Building Safer Future feeding into the Building Safety Act really drive that robustness and having the evidence and completion of everything that we do out on site. And I think there was a question in the chat there around our supply chain and our staff. How do they understand their roles and responsibilities? And we are starting to see more competence frameworks appearing into industry, and we will align with those in due course. As I mentioned, we do have improvement plans in place, and in line with our 9001, we review those every year, and we're constantly developing our software and our tools. And again, some of the team who've been involved in that are on the call, and looking at new suite of check sheets. We're probably about 200, and we've based that on the construction quality initiatives, inspection and test plans. So again, aligning to industry, not reinventing the wheel, as something that we really want to emphasize. And again, a couple of slides on that shortly. Some extra things that we're doing around construction control plans, very much expansion of what we're already doing. And I think that's a key message that I've spoken to Lorna about a couple of times, that we need to expand what we're doing rather than reinventing something new. We want to reduce the confusion in industry. And I think that's a key focus that needs to start coming out from the sort of industry bodies to assist everyone with driving through with that process. As I mentioned earlier, we've already got some existing quality processes, looking at how design complies, planning, collaborating, that whole circle of reporting which sits within 9001. And as I look after our digital quality tools, we've been running monthly workshops on getting the best out of it, and with a key focus this week around World Quality Week. How do we make that more robust? How do we integrate the rest of the business into that process? Other things we were doing around training. So again, tying in our quality, building safety is a module I run, and we've got others on fire doors, fire dampers, external cladding, brickwork partitions, etc. So again, trying to upskill our staff so that quality and safety become natural. They understand and they got the context of where all of this ties together. Also bring all the information together, as Lorna and Louise have highlighted. There is a lot of stuff out there. How do you get that out to your staff? So we've updated our internet pages for building safety. We linked to the latest Build UK standards and information, which was updated last week. Very, very useful. Also linking to the health and safety, to REBA, etc. So really, really core that we've got everything is accessible to our staff and it's all kept up to date. So I think to add to Louise's sort of comments, summary, encouragement, you do need to take time to review your systems, work with your in-house quality teams. I work directly with ours, and go through clause by clause, but don't treat it as a tick box exercise. Actually get something out of it, get senior management buy-in, get support from your staff, update your existing processes. We have had to do that. Update and align to your existing initiatives, and make sure you keep your staff up to date. That was something to the leadership and culture. We need to make sure that they are brought alongside. Otherwise, they will start to see this as being this tick box, and it doesn't bring benefits to your projects. But there have been challenges. There is confusion out there, a lot of reinventing the wheel, and I think we just want to make sure that we do look at existing processes, whether that's regulations and CDM and 9001 and quality standards, and how we can just reinforce doing those in a better way. And some of the other confusions, as Lorna's already identified, around the principal designer. There are two roles, they do overlap. But when I, as an architect, as my background, I read the Building Safety Act principal designer, it describes the lead designer, someone who is bringing all of that together, the performance, the compliance of the project, then taking that into the flex standards for competency. We should already be doing that as an industry in terms of the types of projects that we deliver. And that then feeding into the building safety case, that already aligns to CDM, but also reinforcing how do we get industry to better understand existing guidance like the REBA Fire Plan of Work and Checklist and LABC, who help you demonstrate that the project is going to comply with the regulations. So that's been a big focus of what we've been doing. And again, Regulation 38 and the golden thread and fiery standards. And I'm in one of the working groups for the fiery standard in terms of what does the golden thread mean? What does that list of information? So again, delving into that detail, making sure your design teams, your site teams properly read the standards, they properly apply the standards, they properly record, and just being more robust in what we were already supposed to be doing. And as Lorna's already mentioned, that looking at those changes and the competency frameworks, they will start to come, and hopefully CITB and Supply Chain School will start to up those training for supply chain, and also the design tools and digital tools like Identify and Source and Chorus. They will all be there to help feeding into this code for construction product information, but also tying into obviously World Quality Week through CQI, CAOB, GIRI, lots and lots of really, really good stuff coming out at the moment. And we need to bring that on so that these sort of confusion in the terminology starts to become a bit more natural for everyone, and it doesn't become sort of that sort of frightening piece that it is at the moment. As I mentioned, I am on the NEMA FARI working group because I've spotted some of the people who joined the call. I quickly amended my slides, and we are looking at what does this contain, how do we bring BIM and FIRE together in terms of explaining how that golden thread actually works in reality. And so that will start to get cascaded into industry once we start to get a feel for what is information, not reinventing the wheel, and actually bring that into reality. And so that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. I was very conscious of the time and wanting to be able to get some questions into the Q&A, or to people who've raised their digital hands. So that is all I want to cover for today, but just to really, really encourage other companies, other contractors to start looking at your systems, start to bring those sort of improvements into your processes, and then hopefully the whole ground fault situation will never ever happen again. So thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, Adrian. Thank you so much. That was a really good overview of your experience of the BSF processes and a lot of the improvements that you have made towards the compliance with the new Building Safety Act. It's really good to see those, actual tangible examples of some of the stuff that you have done. So super helpful. I'm just going to go quickly to the Q&A. So I will go for the one for me about how contractors ensure the supply chain are compliant with the building safety requirements of it. I think as a main contractor, you can't shirk your responsibilities anymore, and you can't just push the risk down the supply chain. So I would say early supply chain onboardment and having those key relationships going forward where you work together and understand the key safety case requirements in the likes of where there is a safety case, and very much draw on each other's technical expertise, because main contractors aren't experts in absolutely every item that the subcontractor is, and I think there's that knowledge that can be shared, and vice versa. The main contractor has knowledge to offer that subcontractor. So create a quality management system that's very clear and at the output that says, okay, this is what my expectation is. You need to produce an inspection and test plan in this format. It needs to be reviewed. You need to create your records digitally. These will be our overseeing requirements of them. And I think once you have those conversations very early doors and have that collaborative relationship, that would put you in the best foot forward to making sure that your supply chain are on board and you are all going to be delivering the same level of construction quality as well as the digital information quality come the end of the building, and with the hope to get that completion certificate and get the building handed over. One here for you, Louise. Is there a fee to become a signatory supporter or champion?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. In short, the answer is yes. The fees can be seen on our website. So as I say, we are a not-for-profit organisation. So this isn't about us making money out of it, but we do have to, charge fees for our administrative and our ongoing costs, but also to pay for our assessors as well. So we have a really, highly skilled team of experienced expert assessors, and we do need to pay them for their time. So yes, there are fees for the registered signatory corporate supporter, and also champions as well. For the registered signatory and the corporate supporter, it's a really nominal amount just to cover those administration costs. The champion assessment fee is a bit higher, but it is actually tiered and it depends on the size of your organisation in terms of turnover. So smaller organisations with a lower turnover pay less, and then bigger organisations with a higher turnover pay more. But you can see them all on our website.
Great, that's perfect.
And I'll pick up Melanie's comment. Hi, Melanie, nice to hear from you again. Yes, absolutely, I totally agree. All of this reinforces the need to do BIM properly structure your requirements, don't duplicate and don't add, and create this completely separate sort of process. And that's one of the things I've been writing into the guidance with the team at NEMA as part of our fiery review. I think you put a note there about being a BIM++. I think no, it's just another part, as you say, with carbon and pacify, so you come into the Scottish teams for all of their schools. It should be treated in exactly the same way, and that's why we are trying to align and standardise it in the best way that we can. I think it's now up to industry to try and take away some of that confusion and to try and to reinforce that it should just be another part of what we do already. And I see another one from Sophie there, directed at myself. So yeah, absolutely, the communication has been really, really important off the back of the Building Safety Act requirements, and as part of our charter, we introduced product quality champions across each of our business units. We've got 11 business units. 2 of our champions are actually on the call today. They'll not have heard all of this from me before, and we did absolutely reinforce improved quality, looking at all the check sheets, looking at ITP, using our digital tools. How do we get our supply chain on board to provide all of those records as we progress the project rather than leaving it to them? So no, absolutely. And as part of World Quality Week, that's been escalated across all of our businesses, not just in residential, but also across our highways, our environment, our water teams. So that everybody across the businesses naturally is lifting the game around regulation, compliance, and quality, irrespective of the sector that you actually work with.
Yeah.
See some of the questions being typed.
Yeah.
Or I think are they able to speak as well within this if they want to ask a question? Your setup and permissions.
I should be able to, yeah, allow mic for Matt if you'd like to, yeah, unmute and ask the question, Matt.
I was part typed out as well and about to
I
press
just see
the
you
enter
typing,
button.
Matt, and I thought I'll let him speak instead of typing it out.
It's quite a well-timed discussion point, this around competent contractors. As you think about things when you're falling asleep at night. This was one of the things I was last night. I'm looking at ITP's, Adrian, and wondering whether competent contractors need to provide us paperwork, certification, and sign-off points over and above what we've already listed out in our forms, and whether if the answer is yes, then what are they, and when do we start to see an update to the forms that we've got?
Yeah, so I think that's wider piece, Matt. So it's not just our own procedures, but the CAOB, I think it was only last month, released their supervisors competency framework. It's very, very similar to the CAOB code of quality conduct, and we will start to see that those key decision points will start to appear. So the ITP templates that we, as you know, we've taken the construction quality initiatives template. We put whole points across all of our check sheets. I didn't put that snapshot in. I didn't want to give too much of our copyright away to industry. We've obviously put whole points. We make sure that our supply chain do complete those. And we now to go back like the supply chain as well, everybody else, to make sure they've got FIS, ASFP, etc., in terms of their standards. And the one that we've been chatting about, Matt, around fire doors and installation, making sure they've got all of those records in place. that they do follow the BWF or BM-TRADA standards. Again, it's just raising that awareness that we need to go into a lot more detail, and I think people have been used to, because that reduces our risk, it reduces everyone's risk, that we actually deliver a project that is compliant. So yeah, what's this space?
Okay. Do some of these contractors that can self-certify against the building regulations, do their obligations change on high-risk buildings? Can they still self-certify on high-risk buildings, or do they have to update a procedure or process?
I don't think they will be able to for high-risk, high-rise buildings, because that would then fall under the building safety regulator.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, so I think that will only apply then for small scale works. I think everything else will have to fall under your building control authority, whether that's a private or local authority. And I think it may start to come along into the similar process that I've been used to in Scotland, where you're not allowed to breathe on site without actually having gone through a formal submission at effectively the equivalent of Gateway 2 before you start on site. I think that will become a lot more commonplace, and there is now a new scheme through the building safety regulator to get approved certifiers as part of that process. I know LABC and others are doing a big recruitment drive at the moment to make sure they've got sufficient capability and their own knowledge to actually do that on far more projects than just high rise. So that will also very much change as well. I think there's a timeline on the Build UK's website that gives a sort of an indication of some of those changes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for everybody joining us today, and anybody that gave up their lunchtime to listen to this webinar for World Quality Week. So I'll just wrap it up there because we're ever so slightly over the time. But yeah, if you want to contact any of us in the future, please reach out. We're happy to answer your questions in the future. And yeah, thank you very much for your time and your support today.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.